Hi, it's me, James VanOsdol, and this is Carcon Carne. And I'm recording this because I wanted you to understand what's been going on with me in the past month and a half. You've been hearing guest hosts on Carcon Carne, including my own daughter, and you'll continue to hear guest hosts in the coming weeks. But I wanted you to understand why this is happening, and I'm thrilled that I have the guest hosts I have. It's all been because of medical stuff. Now, I wrote down a whole bunch of notes. So if you're watching this on video, I am kind of reading a script. It's more notes, but I just want to make sure I don't forget anything as I'm telling you all this stuff. So in mid to late October, actually, it was my mom's birthday. It was October 18th. That night, I experienced the most profound and intense stomach/abdominal pain I've ever experienced. I thought at the time it was something else. In fact, I kind of pretended, I guess, that it couldn't have been that severe, but it was bad. And I spent the next 2 days, don't do this if this ever happens to you, don't delay. Spent the next 2 days basically incapable of doing anything other than staying in bed and being miserable. I couldn't read. I couldn't watch anything. I couldn't really communicate. I was just in a bad sort of way. So after a couple days, finally went to the ER. Again, don't do this. If you're feeling awful and unusually uncomfortable, go see a doctor. So I went to the ER, spent several hours in the ER, the culmination of which was a doctor reviewing my CT scan results and saying, how long did you say you haven't felt well? I said, a couple days since Saturday. He said, that's real interesting because you have a perforated appendix, ruptured appendix. He actually said that and walked away, which was the weirdest bomb to drop without a follow-up. I was admitted right after that, spent 3 days in the hospital, taking a massive course of antibiotics. And the plan was to feed me full of antibiotics in the hopes of reducing all the infection caused by my ruptured appendix and preventing an abscess from growing. The goal was to get everything kind of cleared out and settled there so that doctors or surgeons could go back 4, 6, 8 weeks from then and remove the appendix without any clutter in the way. So they sent me home after 3 days with massive antibiotics, these huge horse pills. I took them 3 times a day. The problem was I didn't get better. In fact, I got pretty quickly worse. After just a few days back at home, I called a friend of mine who's a doctor. In fact, he's been on the show a bunch. He's a punk rock doctor. And I asked for his advice, and he's like, get to the ER. Always trust your punk rock doc. So I went back to the ER. I was admitted pretty quickly, a lot faster than the first time around. And that hospital stay lasted for 5 days. And the scans this time around, the CT scans revealed that, an abscess had grown. And to get rid of it, it needed to be drained. And to enable that drainage, the hospital's interventional radiology team placed a drainage tube in my stomach to suction out all the grossness that was developing in my abdomen. Now, the tube itself was incredibly uncomfortable because it essentially had impaled my abdomen to get to the abscess, which made it really difficult. It was like I had no core. Not that I had much to start with. I had no core to maneuver in and out of bed, cars, off and on furniture. It was really uncomfortable. So the drain went in, suctioning all the disgusting stuff into a bulb that the doctors call a grenade because it looks like a grenade. Oh my God, when you pull the pin, it's awful. I had to drain the grenade and flush it 2 times daily. Horrible experience. It didn't make me feel great. And it did a number on my mental health. I mean, the drainage tube really became a big focus of my daily life, and it really became something I was absorbed in. It didn't help that I wasn't sleeping well because I had this tube in and I couldn't sleep really on either side. I had to sleep on my back, which is very unnatural for me. It was an awful, awful time. I was fatigued pretty much every day from when I was discharged. What was that, November 1st? Through about a week ago, literally 1 week ago. I tried to stay hydrated. I tried to take in a lot of protein, all the things, but I was lights out in the middle of the day. Just could not keep my eyes open for a stretch for 2 hours. I had to go out for about 2 hours. It wasn't even a nap. It was like a deep sleep. It was ridiculous. So There were a couple other Easter eggs happening at that time from my hospital stays. The first was a loss of my voice, which you can kind of hear remnants of as I'm talking to you right now. My voice was essentially reduced by half by the time I left the hospital, sounding almost entirely lost on some days. I tried to get in with an ENT doctor to figure out what's going on. The soonest available appointment, this will make you feel great about the healthcare system, was July. I couldn't get in to address the fact that I had no voice for weeks on end until July. I finally reached out to my surgical team saying, can you please pull a string? Can you help me with this? The good news is I'm seeing an ENT doc this coming Friday as I'm recording this to figure out what happened to my voice and is it a concern. If you listen close enough, you can hear that I've lost, my voice isn't whole as I'm talking to you right now. The other Easter egg, which was interesting, was profound tendinitis. I had trouble walking for several weeks. I visited an orthopedic doctor, and he said it's not unusual for people who've spent 5 to 10 days in a hospital bed, which I had. It was really difficult to walk. My heel was painful to put pressure on. I would say only within the past 4 or 5 days, I'm not walking without a limp. I mean, the voice and the tendinitis were like, cool. What else can I experience from this appendix situation? Just awful. But there's good news in all of this. This past Monday, the Monday before Thanksgiving, I went for my second drainage check. I was scheduled to go every 2 weeks. They want to make sure it's draining okay, that everything's still in place. Excuse me. The first time I went, the interventional radiologist said, yeah, there's still so much abscess, so much to drain here. You're going to have this in until your surgery, which at that point was still unscheduled. Again, not great for the mental health. Pretty emotionally debilitating. This past Monday, I went in and the doctor said, the abscess is cleared. We're not suctioning out anything else. It's gone. How would you feel if we took the drain out today? I swear to God, tears like that. I had not emotionally prepared for that to be even a possibility. I just assumed I'd be living with this drain for several more weeks. So the drain came out on Monday, which was such a game changer. Hey, I can sleep on my sides and my dog can walk on me. Things like that. It was a huge step in the right direction, just emotionally and physically. It's made life so much easier right away. So as it stands, my appendectomy surgery is scheduled for mid-January. It was originally scheduled for this month. But then my surgeon called and said, I'm looking at your scans again, and I think I need to bring in a specialist. You may need to lose some of your colon and intestine for them to get this out. There's no way of knowing for sure, but I want you to connect with a colorectal surgeon. Never something you want to hear, but I connected with the colorectal surgeon, went to his office last week, and he said, yeah, there's a chance we may need to do that. It shouldn't have any lasting impacts on your digestion or all the stuff that happens down there. He said, of course, there is a remote chance. Needless to say, as many of you might, I totally fixated on the remote chance, but I'm going to stay positive about that. Oh my God. So that surgery happens in mid to late January. Before I get there, I've got 4, 5 more doctor/medical visits to do. I've got to check in with my PCP. I've got to do blood work. I've got to do another CT scan. I've got that ENT doc this week. And then I have the fan favorite colonoscopy coming up. They just want to make sure everything's cool down there. So awesome. The appendix is no joke. In summary, if you take anything away from me talking, the appendix is no joke. And all this is to say, I wanted to explain my absence. I love having dialogue with my guests, with you. I miss doing this. So like I said, I'm going to record a best of 2025 show. I'm gathering clips right now in my downtime. And I just, up until very recently, I had no desire to record this podcast with guests because I had that tube. I had that stuff draining just outside of my person. I wasn't feeling terribly social, as I'm sure you can imagine. But now I have my energy back. I don't have the tube. I'm thinking about jumping back in, soon. But like I said, I've got some more guest hosts, really awesome guest hosts, and I want to make sure we get through those as well. So just wanted to catch you up on everything going on. It's a lot, but a lot of people have asked, and I've been incredibly humbled and just touched by all the outreach I've received. None of this is life-threatening. This isn't cancer. I know people who go through a lot worse shit than this, but it hasn't been fun for me. It's been hard. So I really appreciate messages and thoughts sent my way. I've read everything. If I haven't responded to everything, I've certainly read everything. I greatly appreciate it. So that all done and said and done. Watch for the Best of 2025 episode. I'm going to try to record that very soon. And lots more outstanding guest-hosted episodes. I hope you had an awesome Thanksgiving holiday. I hope you have an amazing holiday month. And we'll do this again soon.